This is Orcadia, my 1,300-gallon cloud rainforest canopy vivarium, which represents the lush treetop world of the rainforest, known for its species-rich biodiversity, and I'm studying the ecosystem it supports, together with the rainforest floor vivarium, which is attached to it on the floor below, called Pandora. This canopy vivarium recently underwent a renovation, specifically the addition of this large banyan tree. But little did I know, this tree turned out to be a Trojan horse. For living in its leaves and pod were a whole slew of surprise newcomers to our rainforest world. This is the story of how I discovered a ton of new and unexpected creatures in my giant rainforest vivarium that altered the trajectory of our rainforest project forever. This is episode 43 of my ongoing ecosystem vivarium series, where Mother Nature never ceases to surprise us with her unexpected Easter eggs. Here on the Ants Canada Ant Channel. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. All items at antscanada.com are now at 15% off until January 1st. Join the ant-keeping hobby with the best ant-keeping community. Now, on with the episode. Okay, so I'll be honest. When my team and I added the large tree into Orcadia to renovate the canopy in the last episode, I had no idea what biological insanity was up ahead and the possible danger I would be in from the moment I made this terrifying discovery. This is a dirt pit in Pandora, the forest floor vivarium, into which I buried a mystery egg I found in my yard. Mystery because I didn't know what laid it. I didn't know if it was fertilized, and I didn't know if it would hatch. There were a ton of signs that it was dead, like when I spotted ants emerging from a hole in its shell a couple weeks back, before burying the whole thing back up so I wouldn't have to deal with the stench. But then, just this week, I noticed this. Even after a few weeks, there was still no stench of decay. That's funny. I totally expected a foul odor by now. As I looked into the moss, I was surprised to see a giant trapjaw ant wandering around against a white surface. I suddenly began to worry when I realized that it was the egg above the soil layer. I uncovered the moss, and to my surprise, the egg had indeed surfaced. This was not at all how I left it. My heart began to race as I went in with my tweezers to try to roll the egg over. Oh my gosh! What? I felt dizzy, staring at the gaping hole in the egg. I was loving all the amazing creatures that had been imported into Orcadia via the newly installed banyan tree. This was the first new creature I spotted. At first I thought it was just a tiny piece of leaf stuck to the glass, until I realized it was moving. Upon closer inspection, it was the cutest little leafhopper-like creature. The way it moved and wobbled, from afar, it kind of looked like a green water bear, in a strange way. Now I say leafhopper because it kind of looked like one, but truth is, I've never seen anything like it, and wasn't exactly sure what kind of insect it was. Was this some sort of beetle? Any experts care to chime in and help me identify this little creature? It was just a few millimeters long, and I just loved its color, and the pair of eyes at the sides of its head. Nearby, I caught sight of this newbie. It was some kind of beetle, and it was chewing on something from the surface of the wood. I loved its colors. It was in the process of folding its wings under its metallic blue-black elytra. It had just flown to this spot and was having lunch. I also noticed it sustained injuries to its reddish limbs. poor fella. Oh, it pooped. Guess it feels at home. I had a feeling spotting these two peculiar but cool creatures in our canopy was just a preview of all the potential and amazing new life there was to discover in our new tree world. But I completely lost my breath when I spotted these new black ants whipping by like crazy. This is awesome! Dolichoterus ants! My heart leapt with joy when I spotted these little guys running across the branches of the banyan tree. If you're new to these ants, don't worry, so am I, as this will be my very first time owning this genus of ant. These cool black ants are an arboreal species, and their colonies essentially cluster among the leaves of trees, basically nesting in any tightish space in the foliage they can pack into. I looked around the foliage for their nest. I tried to follow their trails, but they were basically trailing everywhere, completely dominating this tree. Ah, there's one grouping of ants. I think they're discussing what the heck happened and where they were. What I love about these Dolichoterus ants is how active they are. I remember seeing them in the wild while visiting a local cloud rainforest. Hang on. Okay, sorry guys. I thought I saw something. Anyway, I was happy to welcome these rambunctious and eager native ants to our rainforest canopy. What should we name them, guys? Let me know in the comments. With this being my first time owning Dolichoterus ants, I was interested to see what their role would be in the ecosystem, specifically what they ate. And after snooping around, I was drawn to this scene. A Dolichoterus ant was hovering over a group of scale insects. It was waiting for the sweet stuff. Along came a coworker. Hey, so I'm waiting for honeydew. How about you? Just foraging. This place looks strange. Okay, see you at the nest. Bye. Ants are always checking passerbyers, just to make sure they were from the same colony with their same identifying colony scent. Otherwise, aggression was the only option. This banyan tree, full of its scale insects that gave up sweet honeydew, as seen here, was their territory, and they weren't willing to share. However, these Dolichoterus ants would soon be finding out that if they wanted it, they would need to defend this tree home against other invasive forces. Okay, so let's look at the possibilities. I could see a ton of gnome ants and soil creatures eating away at the remains of this egg. My initial thought was maybe this egg was infertile all along, and that dried piece of material seen there was just the remains of it. Perhaps an old yolk or something. The soil creatures, or ants, could have torn this massive hole into the shell. Or, okay, nope, no missing piece of shell below the egg. So yeah, maybe this was just what the egg looked like in its decaying process. But this still didn't explain why the egg was sitting above the soil like it had surfaced. Also, this hole did look like pictures I saw online of hatched snake eggs. The reason why this was concerning to me is because whatever laid this egg was either a monitor lizard or a snake, like a cobra. One of these options I didn't quite mind, but the other was life-threatening and was ample reason for high alert. But how could the egg be alive if we saw ants emerging from a hole in it a couple episodes back? I don't know, but checking old footage of when we saw the ants emerging from the hole, I noticed that the egg already seemed a bit hollow. Perhaps if something did hatch from the egg, it happened before we last checked, which would mean that whatever hatched could have been living and hiding in Pandora this whole time. Which brings me to another reason I was worried. AC family, I hate to say this, but for the past 3 weeks, I've been spotting Snap, one of our 2 young sunskinks, but strangely, not his sister, Snip. The thought of some new predator lurking in Pandora and preying on the animals terrified me to no end. Never in this Vivarium project did I ever fear for my life, as well as for the creatures in the Vivarium, as I did now. In retrospect, Adding this egg into the ecosystem, which I thought was dead, all for the purpose of soil nutrients, was my biggest mistake. As the Dolichoterus ants hung out by the hydrating mist of their new cloud rainforest home, they had no idea a tiny competitor was stealing resources from their tree. A ghost ant, one of the 2 unwelcome invasive ant species in our rainforest, was harassing a mealybug for its honeydew. Come on, pay up! Gimme, gimme, gimme! Like an ant with OCD, it would stroke the mealybug, then attempt to leave, but return to the mealybug just seconds later to check again, then repeat the cycle. This ghost ant was not willing to give up. Eventually, its tenacity paid off, and the mealybug gave up a sweet blob of honeydew. I then spotted this cute beetle wandering the foliage. What gorgeous color! This small metallic red beetle was searching for just the right spot to launch, and when it found it, it flew up to a branch where it almost got caught by a Dolichoterus ant. It raced away unscathed. As lucky as this red beetle was to evade, the Dolichoterus ants were busy dealing with another, more concerning red force. These are invasive red ants, who although nest in wood and not on the tree like the Dolichoterus ants, I could already tell were on the Dolichoteran radar as unwelcome new neighbors. You see, the problem was, though the red ants inhabited dead wood, they still frequented the banyan leaves for food. I saw the red ants licking up remnants of sweet honeydew squirted out by the plant insects, and were quite thorough at it. For now, thankfully, the red ants had claimed the smaller banyan tree as theirs, not the one claimed by the Dolichoterus ants. But I knew, sooner or later, the 2 ants would be pushing against each other to claim the valuable resources from each other's tree. I actually don't know who would win between this proverbial war between red ants versus black ants, but I knew it wouldn't be good. But you know what? Little did I know, there were actually more hidden players in this competition of the ants over resources. But the red ants had discovered a new and uncharted area of the canopy to conquer, currently free of any ant occupation. Orchadia's brand new compost heap that I added to help nourish our canopy. I was delighted to see that this area was going exactly as planned. I could see various soil creatures already pioneering the future soil biota of Orchadia. Having a bioactive soil layer in the canopy was key, because these soil creatures would help convert decaying leaf litter to nutrients for all the plants growing here, as well as the fungi. I already noticed a team of fungi flourishing in the compost. The fact that various colonies of fungi were already producing fruiting bodies was such a great sign that better days were ahead for Orchadia. Adding this compost layer was one of the best things I ever did. Orchadia also had another new and large body of soil, i.e., this large pot in which the new banyan tree was growing. A sudden movement up in the tree caught my eye. A baby gecko was exploring the new foliage. He was intrigued by this massive tree that appeared out of nowhere, which was totally infested by ants. But he didn't care. What he loved was that the space was now full of tasty flying insects everywhere. With excitement and anticipation, his tail twitched as he prepared to pounce. Oh, whatever it was he was stalking got away. Regardless, this lizard was happy with the change in scenery and knew his chances of survival were much greater now, which was more than I could say for other lizards in our rainforest. I had to get to the bottom of the sudden disappearance of Snip. If there was some baby monitor lizard or snake down here in Pandora, Snip may have fallen victim to it. Or there was also another possible explanation. Godzilla, our resident spectacled caiman, lay resting in the waters. I suspect he could have eaten Snip, but looking at him below the water's surface, I noticed something peculiar. He was skinnier, like he hadn't eaten a meal for a while. My guess is now that Snap had grown large enough to eat the crickets and probably many of the roaches, which made up the bulk of Godzilla's menu, he now had competition. Plus the crickets in Arcadia in the last episode had cut all the vines leading up through the glass bridge, making it harder for prey insects in Arcadia to travel down to floor level. Crickets and roaches would now need to fall in by accident from Arcadia. Godzilla wasn't starving at the moment, which was a good thing. He's actually scheduled to leave Pandora soon, to move into a new home. But whether Snip was in that belly, or in that of some other beast hiding in Pandora, was a mystery. Night fell in Arcadia, and the spiritual mists bathed the foliage of our new banyan tree for the very first time. The canopy was so peaceful and beautiful at night, especially now with its new biological refurbishment. Against the glass, I spotted drainflies hanging out. These tiny flies came in with the new tree and were pretty cute looking and fuzzy. These drainflies are found pretty much all over the world, and you may actually recognize them as those little flies you find in the bathrooms and kitchens of your home, emerging from drains of your sinks and showers. I was happy to see them in our Arcadian ecosystem, because looking around, a whole bunch of nocturnal predators had emerged for the hunt. Arachnophobes, look away and just listen. I spotted a male jumping spider in search of prey. He was nimble and sported some very handsome colors. This spider, hanging on a lifeline silk, had captured an ant and was feasting on it, suspended in the air. I tried to identify what ant species it caught, but strangely, from the looks of the ant's pointed gaster, it seemed like it was eating a chromatogaster ant, a species which died out in our rainforest many months ago. So it didn't make sense. But I wouldn't be able to tell for sure unless I had a better look at it during the day. I also spotted this gorgeous silverish looking spider, waiting in ambush for prey to scuttle by. I wondered what species it was. So beautiful. A baby huntsman spider was also doing the same thing on a nearby leaf. In addition to all these hunting species of spiders, I also spotted web-building spiders all over the canopy, like this little one. This web actually caught a ghost ant queen elate, which was great. These spiders would surely help to ensure no single ant species completely dominates these trees. The baby gecko stood perfectly still, waiting for prey to appear within striking distance. Being a predator often requires a high degree of patience to score a meal. His eyes were perfectly equipped to spot the slightest of movements under the most minimal of light conditions. Good luck, little one. Also emerging for the nightly hunt were these key tree predators. It was the witching hour for the tree frogs, and they loved all this new foliage up in the canopy. I noticed Kermit in the leaves, but there was something distracting him and kind of throwing him off balance. Now what on earth is that? He asked himself. Surely I need to keep a mental note to not wander over there. I looked over at what he was staring at. Aha! A Dolichoderus nest! A huge mass of Dolichoderus ants were gathered in what I guessed was a satellite nest, meaning one of their many nesting stations. It was crazy to see them all huddled together within the privacy of the underleaf and glass sandwich. What I was really interested in was spotting their queen, or queens. I believe these ants are polygynous, meaning their colonies are composed of multiple egg-laying queens. It was a little dark, so it was hard to really see things, but regardless, it was quite awesome to see these Dolichoderus ants just living life like they would in the wild, here in Orcadia. By day, I checked the nest, and indeed, I spotted a queen. There! As well as several ants with brood in their mandibles. I had high hopes for this new colony of Dolichoderus ants, and was grateful to have them part of the rainforest. A happy surprise gift that came with our new banyan tree. As for the banyan tree, it seemed to be loving its new home, as I saw a ton of new leaf buds. As well as brand new air roots emerging due to the high humidity provisions of Orcadia. Perhaps these air roots would eventually extend down the glass bridge and into Pandora to create a new bridge. I initially was happy when the crickets cut off the vines that bridged Orcadia to Pandora because I thought it would keep the invasive red ants that I thought couldn't climb glass from moving down to Pandora and invading. But look what I saw this week. The red ants can climb glass. Oh, brother. Anyway, it seems the red ants have chosen to remain in Orcadia for now. Our canopy seemed to be a very promising place, supporting life at every corner. And check this out. Orcadia is now truly functioning like a canopy, as some of the banyan leaves are dropping from above through the glass bridge and down onto the forest floor of Pandora, where they can further decay and offer food for other insects and soil creatures, adding to the nutrients of Pandora's soil. Speaking of which, I still don't know what the story is regarding this egg, nor if there is some creature, dangerous or otherwise, lurking in Pandora. I'd love to hear your theories, but one thing's for sure, I hope Snip is still alive in here somewhere, and I sure hope there isn't a cobra slithering around. I don't have to open the vivarium very often, but only do it when I need to wipe the glass for clarity for filming. You better believe I'll be doing that with protection from now on, just in case. But speaking of creatures that have been hiding, it seems there were a lot more secrets in Orcadia than I ever imagined. Look at what I spotted on the red ant's banyan tree. A chromatogaster ant. There were chromatogaster ants in here. Whether they were new and also came with the banyan tree, or had suddenly emerged after months of hiding, is beyond me. But it seems the red ants were not happy with their presence. Hey, who are you? Get out of here! Out! 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 Overall, exploring our new renovated canopy with all its new and exciting creatures reminded me of how important a role trees play in ecosystems. They provide vital habitat for a multitude of animals, provide nourishment for creatures, offer up valuable nutrients to the soil and creatures living within it, and of course, provide the life-giving oxygen needed for animals to thrive. It was no wonder that in placing just a single tree into our vivarium, with it came an entire team of inherently connected wildlife. It's also why I don't sterilize the decor or plants that I place into our rainforest, like I would if I was building a home for, say, a captive pet lizard, for example. The entire objective for this project is to study wild ecosystems, and seeding the ecosystem with the associated life forms, along with every piece of decor in it, was in alignment with the project. If a piece of driftwood came with moss, lichen, and other creatures living on it, like the invasive red ants, so be it, as this was a real piece of wild ecosystem, the ants included. Sterilizing all decor and plants placed into our vivarium would be counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve in Arcadia and Pandora. The only time I felt it was necessary to intervene is when the ecosystem is in danger of collapse. For instance, like when the super colony of black crazy ants, named the Dark Horde, perhaps the worst invasive species of ant in the world, next to fire ants, completely took over the tank back in Pandora's earlier days, which eventually left me with no choice but to trap and vacuum the black crazy ants up until the native ants could catch up and outcompete them to death. This ecosystem project has been invaluable to science as we constantly learn about the inner workings of Mother Nature. I felt grateful to be on this ecosystem journey with you all and couldn't wait to see what the future held for our rainforest canopy and all its new and old creatures. As I was staring at the pot, I caught sight of some black ants running around. They weren't Dolichoderus ants, but perhaps this was where the Chromatogaster ants were living. As soon as I got a better look, I couldn't believe my eyes. No. The Dark Horde. Vote in my community tab to affect this story